Hey guys, getting set up. Let's give you the fancy opening. I set the camera up. It should work today. This is exciting. I had a little doom vote. There we go. All right, give me a minute. Let's do the fancy part and then hey guys, hold on one second. I'm doing the blue light glasses. I don't know how long they're going to last, but I'm doing blue light glasses. Let's see how this goes. So I did notice a difference with the eye strain the other day. So I'm going to keep that up. Where am I going with this? Where do I want to start? I want to start here. Just disclosure, I own ZIM. I've owned it for a long time. I'm not really up in the trade. I'm really not. Actually, I'm not up in the trade. I think I'm in. The last time I bought it was right in here. So that portion's probably up. I bought it in here some, but I've been buying this thing forever because of the dividend. They have a buyout from the CEO. I completely understand why the CEO wants to buy the company. It makes perfect sense to me. I don't know that he's going to be able to buy it as cheap as he thinks he's going to buy it. And I'll just go through a couple things. Their cash position's $19. Their tangible book is $32.65. So to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for shareholders to sell. Now, does he get shareholders behind him that say, yeah, we want to take it private, and they get part of that conglomerate to do it? Anything's possible, but that would be a freaking steal to do that. Absolute steal to do that. So, please consider that it is a possibility that it goes at that price. I'll be pissed. That's the technical term for how I'll feel about it. To me, the one thing I would point out is that if you go and take a look from the IPO price over, it would mean that the average person that owns it has lost money. Now, if I drop it this way from that peak over, that's right, your point of control is up here at like $19, right where he's saying he wants to buy it. So the majority of people, even though the volume weighted average is one thing, point of control where the most people own it is right where he's talking about it. So can it happen? Yeah, I'll be really annoyed if it does, because I think it should go a lot higher. I think it's worth a lot more than that. So let's see how that plays out, and we'll go from there. But definitely keep that on your radar. He's been trying to do this for a while, and now they're talking about him stepping down while they're doing the terms, which means that it's probably closer than we think it is. NVIDIA, and we're going to get to the Micron news in 1 second here, but I want to go through this. So NVIDIA is going to pay the government, and AMD is going to pay the government for the privilege of selling their product to China. Not exactly something that I would call, free market. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't really understand why they would feel the need that they have to do this. They're going to do it, and they're going to pay so that they have access to the market. But I don't understand why they would have to do that. They're going to have to do it because the government says they're going to have to do it. But that's a really freaking slippery slope. And the question is, does it cut to their gross margins, or does China pay more? And why just China, right? Like how much does this start to expand to other companies and things like that? So that's a real issue here. I'm not a fan of this move at all, at all. I'm a big free market kind of guy, government hands off, fix my roads, do the military kind of guy, and leave me alone. I'm not really a fan of this move at all, but it's there. Is it going to help these names? Yeah. They're going to have access to the market, and now they're not going to bitch about the market. Excuse my language, but they're not going to bitch about the market because they're getting paid on it. Are we worried about China getting chips, or are we worried about that we're not profiting from it? So this to me is super slippery slope, and we'll see how that goes. But that's why they're down a little bit today. And I do think, if you think about it from that standpoint, who benefits? Well, anything that is being sold with NVIDIA and AMD benefits. So is AVGO going to have to do that? Probably not. NBIS, any of these names that are secondary names next to it, Dell, all these names are going to benefit. So I'm not really sure why they're done, unless they're going to go to them next and say, you're going to have to pay too. And I don't know if they're going to try and do that. I don't have a clue, but they all benefit from it. So I think that's super interesting. So much news out there today. And the other thing I would say is, before I get into the indexes, and then I'm going to take questions, they just don't want to own software. This was not bad at all. So if you were long this, that's the game. I always say this. We think just because you have good earnings and good guidance that you're going to go higher. And it's always, should you? Yeah, that's the right way to think about it. But this was decent. And, they're selling it down. They don't want to own software now. And if they don't want to own software, you need to think about that. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, I own both of these. I actually doubled them on Friday. If you're in the community, you know this, but these are going higher, I think. And you might want to look at the stories a little bit. People keep talking about, it's the warrants and these things aren't going to go higher. And they're trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do to themselves, why they're talking themselves out of it. In November, these things came out. It was very clear that this stuff was leaked and that he was going to do this. This is probably the leakiest administration we've ever had. But November 6th, these things are $1.80. They're at 10. These things are going public. He's going to take them public. What price you make off of this, where these things go to, I don't know. I don't have a clue. I would imagine the fervor that comes in this, as people realize it over the weekend that they need to be in these names, is exactly what you're seeing today. I'm not really sure why that's going to stop, to be honest with you. I'm not really sure why people think something like that's going to just all of a sudden go away. It's only going to get greater, and then, maybe it does come down, and maybe they are too overvalued. But yeah, I just think it's not the institutional side so much, but I think retail is going to play this a lot, and I pay attention to those. Let's go to the ES. I think the most important thing that I could show you on the ES right now is just this level right here. And I'm just going to drop it down to there and then show you that on a 1 so you can see what I'm marking off. So I'm just marking off last night's session. Okay, that should be the 6, right? 601. There it is, 6. And that's your open. And from there, you can see from the open the battle that you've had all morning. And for me, I have this declining area where you're not really able to get over any of that. So I'm not really sure that you need to be rushing into anything. What I would say when I look at this is, you have this DTL, the DTL broke. Do I really need to rush into the market? I don't feel that way. I think that you could probably look at this low Friday area, make sure you hold. You're really at that 6,400. Do you hold that or do you not? And then you obviously want to make sure that if you're going to go long, you got to break through that DTL up there, downward trend line. And then, of course, you're looking right here, which is that 63.9175. And that's really how I see it on a 5-minute chart. I mean, I don't think I need to go back much further there. You also have to ask yourself a question, like how busy are you going to be today? Like how busy does this get in a environment like today? In other words, do they just sit on their hands because CPI is tomorrow? And they very well might. They very well might sit on their hands because CPI is tomorrow. I don't have an answer to that. But if I had to, gun to my head, do you see a lot of money being committed until then? I truly don't, but you just never know. I don't know how I feel about this doing the glasses with it. Can be honest, it's kind of annoying. I think the blue light works because it blocks everything, but let's just see that for a second. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. We're going to do that much longer. It's kind of helping, but not really. I think it makes your eyes less tired faster, but if you can't see things, what's the point? Do I have to look at other levels besides this? Yeah, I think you do. I think you have to think about this going, do you sell down here? See, my concern with the move by the administration is, do we find ourselves in a position, you got to get through that. You really want to make sure that you're going to get through the top of this. So that's where I would put the alert, to make sure that I get through that, make the higher high. Because you have to think about it, like, why is he going to stop with AMD and NVIDIA? Like, why do they have to pay? Why not other people, right? Like, why wouldn't other people have to pay if they're going to have to pay? I think that's a huge issue that we have to look at. So, and go from there. And hold on one second here. Maybe 1 second, guys. I'll take a look at that stuff. Thanks. But I really think this is how you need to look at today. I'm not really feeling the I'm not really feeling the need that I got to rush in here. I think there's certain things that look good, but I'm more interested in tonight. The ASTS is going to be fascinating to me. Some of these names look pretty weak though, that just ran up. So 1 foot out the door is probably not the worst thing. I think that's definitely an area of interest, and go from there. Let's take some questions. I'm short coin. I'm already short. As long as you're not staying above that 320, I think you're fine. That's where the put wall is. Hood, PLTR. I'm long PLTR. Hood, I'm just not chasing it. I'm not saying that's the right strategy. It's clearly not been. They want it to go, so it's going. The earnings came out. You had your little chance to get involved here, and then it ripped. Yeah, I mean, can it keep pushing? Yeah, it 100% can. Retail loves the name. It's constant buying. Where can it go? I would look at it this way. I would measure the last base. So you probably have about 11 days here, right? So you want to make sure that you always have like 11 days of trading before you say that you have like a base. You got 15. Okay. So, and then you have a little break out of that base, right? So I would drop a line on the top of that to the bottom there and then mark it and then go, all right, so off that little base, where could it take me to? And then really all you're doing is looking at a fib, and that fib's telling you 127 is that level, right? The other thing you can do is just measure the base from the top to the bottom, and that's going to get you 18%. And then you would take 18% from the top of the base up, and that's going to get you roughly, maybe a little higher, probably like 134. So, it's not, when you do this stuff, you look at those levels and then you see how it acts. But 127, 134, maybe. Can it get there? Yeah, 100% can get there. I mean, it's definitely telling you, hey, we're going to get there. So there's definitely something to that, and I'd pay attention to that 100%. What else you got? Circle. This is their first quarter of earnings, and they usually are very good. They usually crush to show the street like how great they are. So I don't know. I'm not playing it. I thought about it, but I'm not going to play it. I think the move with all this stuff that was moving, like all the Ethereum and everything else, I think they just bid it up to just knock it down right now, candidly. So I'm seeing it with coin already. I shorted that this morning. I'm very happy with how that's going. BMNR, these kinds of names, they're lifting. I'm short this too. I could be wrong there. It could lift. You could have enough retail that's all over it. This one makes more sense to me. And the volume that's coming in this is significant, but this one just does. I got into it on Saturday as to why. It doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean that these things don't push, but I am short this right now, and I have puts. And the puts have probably opened down, it looks like. I don't know, man. I think you just focus. If I was, the way that I'm playing this stuff is to buy the underlying asset, like to buy the Ethereum, to buy the Bitcoin. That just makes most sense. Like if these guys want to take their stock and convert it into those things, why don't I just own the thing? It just makes so much sense. If I want to throw Octane on it, then just buy, this 2x, Ethereum thing. Like now you just threw Octane on it, This from the stablecoin standpoint, yeah, I get it. I just think we're so far away that it doesn't make sense. But the earnings could be, fantastic there. So we definitely want to watch that and see how that goes. What else do we have here? Good morning from Phoenix. Good morning from Miami. I don't know that I'd short the market. No, I mean, the real issue here is like if I take the Qs, right, and I go and I look at it from I'll do the RSI and I'll do a 4-hour. If I look at the market, what we've done is we've rallied back to where we cracked. That's all we've done. And the RSI is not fantastic here. And you're getting this negative divergence on the hourly. So I'm not like, oh, I got to rush in. I'm also not a big shorter here. So what I'm doing is really bobbing and weaving and trading when I can, like making when I can, getting out of the way. If I go and take a look at the longer term positions I have on, like there's really nothing to do. And this is where it gets super complicated for people. Like, you take a look at something like NVIDIA, and do I really need to do anything? Because it's up $1, down $1. Not really. It's like I look at AVGO, do I really need to do anything? And then I go and look at the swings. Like I always do this. I'll go look at the swings that I got stopped out of that I did for trades. So I did Dell for a trade and I did a swing trade. It did not work. I stopped out. And then I have to honor the stop. I just do. But then I look at what happened? Well, it went higher. So when I start looking at my longs and I'm getting stopped out of my longs, but then they're going higher, do I really want to short the market? Probably not. If I keep putting shorts on and they keep getting cracked, do I want to short the market? Probably then, yeah. That's a real good sign for me to do it. It's also a function of how the market acts, right? So like Reddit earnings. Okay, well, we're ripping on earnings. What's more concerning to me is this. Like, if you want to know, like, should you short the market? Like, does IGV, which is rolling over here, it's hands down rolling over, we can see it. Like, are we starting to make lower highs on the major sectors? And if we are, then you're kind of getting there, right? I mean, if you go and take a look at IGV, for example, up in here, and I do this kind of count thing where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days. 10 days of IGV, 2 have been green. So you definitely have net sellers in IGV, and then you have to ask yourself, does it really break? Because if you lose IGV, right, and you probably lose the market. But then you have Micron coming out and saying we're raising prices. So, are we really going to lose the market? And I'm not so sure that you are. I'm not so sure that you are going to lose the market. I'm just not. I'm not 100% certain on that, and it's definitely on my radar of something that I need to watch today, hands down. So, 1 second here, guys. Let's do this real quick. And so, I think you're in a chop zone, candidly, and I don't know that you're going to see anything major until CPI tomorrow. A second here. So, good morning from Miami. Yeah, but I think they're so beaten down that it's not going to matter. I was going through that this weekend and looking at that. Like, you can see the entire change in the space. I think that they could go through a huge revival. There's only one reason why people aren't buying houses, and it's not because there's not enough houses, and it has everything to do with the mortgage rate. The person that was going to buy a house 3 years ago is now realizing the $700,000 McMansion they were going to buy, the same payment is now a $400,000 house. So they're just like, why buy? I'll just keep renting. Like, rent to income ratio has not changed. So you get to live the same way you're living versus buying a house. Like, right now, you get a better quality of life in a better area renting than you do in an apartment than you do by buying a home. Why would you buy a home? Until that changes, if you need the home, then you would. But until that changes now, I don't see a reason that's going to change. Yeah, I think that it's going to happen. I just think that it's going to take a higher price is where my head is with it. But who knows? You never know how that stuff's going to go. I think you're crazy to go near these things and try to time the bottom. I really do. Are you eventually going to hit a bottom? Yeah. Anybody figure out what's going to happen in these things if Trump really goes through with the most favored nation status? Has anyone thought about that stuff? I mean, I'm buying some of these things like longer term as they're blowing up, like Lilly, but I have very long-term horizons. To buy the health insurance companies, I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, CNC's telling us, don't worry about it. We got it all figured out on the call. How's that going? The day that came out, I shorted it. Now I covered it before earnings. And I actually went long. I actually did it live with you guys, but for a trade, but you're at major support levels on these things, guys. And I don't think you're going to hold. I really don't. I think you're going to crack. I think that this whole space is in a lot of trouble. And I don't see any reason, like at all, that that's going to change. Like none. I just don't. And like this kind of stuff, like TTD to go near it. Yeah, I mean, that's not my kind of trade at all. And I'm not saying that it can't work. It's just not my kind of trade. It's the same thing with FTNT. They're just not my kinds of trades. Can they work? Are they good spots to buy? Like if it's a clothing company, yeah. But if you're a high beta software company and you're blowing up like that, no, those guys don't change their mind and look for value right away. You need a really good story for that to happen. And I don't think you have it yet. So, that's kind of where my head is with it. That's kind of how I look at it, but we'll see. We'll see. MU raised. Yeah, I saw that. That'll help it for sure. I mean, that should help the whole semis today. Demand is there on the hardware or the semi side for sure. I mean, we're definitely seeing it. I think the larger issue is I think the larger issue is really just the overall market theme. And I think that's becoming a concern, but we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes. ABC, I don't know what that is. I don't know enough about that to talk intelligently about it, man. Blank. CoreWeave could hold. They have earnings this week. I mean, it can hold. It's very clear they want to be in it after it flipped and closed above that IPO VWAP right here. Since then, inside bar, and then you gapped, and then you went. So it's very clear that they want to be in that trade. That's very clear to me. So see how that goes. I don't, am I playing that ahead of earnings? No, I'm not, but it can. The Tesla's super interesting here because of the breakout, but you are setting up to break out here. I don't know that I'm chasing it up. I tend not to do that with this name. It tends to not work out very well chasing it. I do think you're setting up a little bit here to push, but I need this thing to kind of fall down, set up somewhere, and then get involved. That's how I do better with it. You got to trade the sucker. It's really hard to say, oh, I'm just going to buy it, because you don't know when he's going to come out and go to a rave or, say something silly again. You just don't know. But from a technical standpoint, yeah, you held that 300 put wall like crazy. So we'll see how that goes with it. It's definitely there. It definitely did that, Mike. 100%. It did do that. That's definitely on my watch list today. I'm just not paying ups when it's like that. I don't know enough about this one. I was looking at this one. This one comes out with earnings this week. I don't know why this one's bad, the other one's good. I don't know. I don't understand it all. I understand this one got a deal. We'll see what that deal does for them. What else? That's pretty much it. Let me just see where else I'm at here. Let me just check something real quick, guys, while we're talking. Yeah, you keep rejecting it. Keep rejecting 20 over and over again now. Rejection, rejection, rejection. So that put wall's real. Probably going to want to watch that a little bit. If the put wall's real, there's nothing for me to do there. All right. What else? SanDisk, you have earnings this week, right? Yeah. I think you're going to see a movement in that. And they benefit greatly from what Micron just said. So, yeah, you 100% can see movement in that. They do benefit off of what Micron said this morning. So I would definitely be watching that. Bum, 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 bum. They can. Yeah, I like the APP calls. I do. I own those. I do like that trade. I think that people don't understand how squeezed some of these suckers can get. Those people have just gotten destroyed, man. So I do like that trade. I'm long APP. So I mean, I had a really great trade in it the other day, and I think it can go a lot higher. Frankly, I mean, this short thesis, we haven't seen any of it play out yet. It doesn't mean that it's not going to, but we haven't seen any of it yet. Yeah, Lynn, I do think it can go. It's just not my kind of trade to chase it. I'd rather wait for a pullback or another setup. I don't do well chasing it. Yeah, I don't really like a lot of that. Like, I think that's really weird. Like, oh, you can sell to them, but we want 15%. Like, why? And they're going to pay it, but I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I sent a bunch of things out and just email if the link doesn't work, just email the concierge. You can do it right now. He'll answer it immediately, and that's the link that is on your welcome letter. But the link should work, and they do expire fast. But if it does, just email the concierge, like literally right now, and that link is on that welcome letter, and he will respond immediately. If you have an issue, let me know. But yeah, you should have it, Vin. Hold on. I mean, do you guys not? Isn't my email just on this thing that I just put down below? Hold on. It should be there. It should be there. Hold on. Let me a second. I know I have a banner with it on there somewhere. Hold on, guys. Here. There's the email. So you can get it to me, but you're better off doing it to the concierge because he will answer faster, hands down. But there it is. I'm not doing that trade. I don't think they're wrong though. This administration needs money to pay for all this stuff that he's buying. His goal is not to reduce the debt. Like if you think about how we started, it started with we're going to put ourselves in a position where we're going to do Doge, right? We're going to pay down all the debt. Okay. And then it went to we're going to outspend our debt. So it's changed drastically. And I think that where his head is with it is let's just increase the income. If we increase the income, we can pay the debt off. How are we going to do that? All right, we're going to shake down corporations. We're going to shake down NVIDIA and AMD. We're going to make pot legal. We're going to put tariffs out there. And we're going to pay the debt down that way. We're going to do stuff with crypto. Like, okay, we're going to sell weapons. Like, I mean, I think that that's really the goal here. So I think if your theme on the market and you look at the market from the standpoint of how can the government derive an income from this, that you'll do very well. And I'd be really surprised. So to see that, but we'll go from there. And we'll see that there. You guys make sure you email me. I'll try and get to it now beforehand. Just email me now. I'm away from Melbourne. Melbourne's beautiful. I'm away from Miami. Apple's just a beast. I don't think people understand that Apple's going to actually compete with Apple's actually going to compete with AWS. I don't think they get it yet. Guys, I'm going to have to jump here in a minute. Once they lower the interest rate, it's it. That's it. I think both of them are like, I would look at CEG. GEV scares me. URA's got issues here. I think the links just aren't working. I sent out some invitations and like the response was overwhelming. And so like I only put so much time and so many clicks on those because I registered them all. Like I'm super, like it's not like they just all work. I'll leave it at that. DG I own. I don't. I'll tell you what I did, and I did it wrong. So I looked at both these names, and I went with Archer, and that was obviously wrong. And JOBY is clearly the winner, and going to be the winner. But this stuff's going to take time. It got a little frothy, guys. I got to jump. I'm going to go over a lot in tonight's video. Make sure you watch it. Have a great day. Make good choices.